Imagine waking up one morning and your phone doesn't work. The power is out and there's no news on the television. And when you get to the store, the shelves are already completely empty. No one knows what's going on. No help is coming. The internet is down, gas pumps are offline, and the streets are completely filled with people scared and confused. That's what the first few hours of a total global collapse would look like. Chaos, fear, and the sinking realization that everything we've relied on is gone. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the key things you need to know and have prepared if you want to survive the first 90 days of a global collapse. Because the first 90 days is the most dangerous part of a global collapse. And if you make the wrong decisions early on or wait too long to act, you won't get a second chance. Now let's break down exactly what needs to happen before and during the collapse to give you and your loved ones the best chance of making it out alive. Tip number 1, have a written plan in place before SHTF. Victorious warriors win first, then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Quote by Sun Tzu from the book, The Art of War. Now this seems really simple and rudimentary. However, most people do not have a plan for the first 90 days of a collapse. So here's what you need to include in your plan. Step 1 is, where do you go? Ideally, you want to go to a place away from looters and other humans who could possibly cause you harm. Desperate humans do desperate things, so avoiding humans besides your tribe is going to be key for the destination that you go to. This destination needs to have food and water and ideally shelter as well, and also so it's hard for the general public to find. Remember, this could be a military event, so you want to make sure you're out of the crossfires of a militia, whether it's foreign or domestic. You also want to include who do you go with or who do you find before you go to your safe place. Go over this plan with your closest relatives, business partners, friends, or whoever else you're going to be surviving the apocalypse with. These need to be people you can trust. Some mistakes to avoid when creating your plan: do not just remember the plan. Write it down. What you write down, you will remember. Make sure you print out multiple copies to have in different areas, like your car, your house, your workplace, etc. When SHTF, you will be frazzled, 100% guaranteed. So it's better to have a plan written down in place that you can reference so that when you can't think straight, you can just go to your paper and follow the plan. Make sure to also pass out this plan to your closest relatives or whoever you're going to be surviving a chaotic situation with. Now, if the only thing you think you need to do to survive the first 90 days of a collapse is have a plan, well, you're wrong. Now just listen to these 3 most common causes of death in failed states like Syria, Somalia, and Yemen. Now there are 3 most common forms of death in failed states, like those in the 90s in Somalia, 2015 and afterwards in Yemen, and post-2011 in Syria. All 3 of these nation states that have failed have 3 most common forms of death. And those 3 most common causes of death are violence from militia activity, famine, and disease. So tip number 2 is going to be have a go bag ready that can solve all 3 of these problems. Now you don't just want a go bag in one location, you're gonna want it in all of your places that you go to and spend time on a regular basis. So your house, your vehicle when you drive from point A to point B, your workplace, and wherever else you spend a large sum of your time every single week. Now I'm gonna show you what you need in these go bags to survive the first 90 days of a collapse. And on top of that, you might think, man, 3 or more go bags, that's gonna be extremely expensive. I'm gonna show you how to get these go bags in under $50 per bag. Starting off with the first most common form of death in a failed state, is going to be violence from a militia. So in order to combat violence from a militia, you're going to need a weapon. Now, ideally, you're going to want a firearm. A firearm is the best form of defense in today's world. But I understand that most people are either not going to be able to go out and buy a firearm right now, or they just might not be comfortable carrying a firearm with them, especially if you have kids. So another great option is having a knife in your go bag. A knife also doubles as a survival tool you can use to create shelter, hunt with, etc. So if a firearm is not in your budget, get yourself a good knife or some sort of other weapon. Now going on to death type number 2 from these failed states is famine. So famine simply is not having enough food and nutrition to survive. So going back to the supplies you need for a violent militia type attack, those types of tools are also going to help you provide food for your family. So if you have a firearm, you can hunt with it. If you have a knife, you can hunt with it. You can also field dress an animal. You can create traps. You can do a lot with a knife. Now, some other things you can do to avoid famine are have a collapsible fishing rod or a bow. You can also have traps too. I'm a huge advocate for trapping. Trapping is the most efficient form of providing food for you and your family. And if you don't believe me, go watch season 6 of Alone or any other season of the show Alone. You'll notice that the most common form of food that people use to survive is trapping, and they typically trap hares or rabbits. Most geographic regions on the planet are gonna have some sort of small game that you can trap with snares or footholds or some other type of trap. So we went over violence and famine. The next one is disease, the third most common form of death in a failed state. This one's a little bit more complicated than the other two. We must do two main things to reduce our chance of getting disease or some sort of sickness that kills us. And those two things are having medical aid or some sort of medical supply, and 2, having water filtration systems. So in your go bag, you're gonna wanna have some lightweight antibiotics and other medical type equipment, as well as some water filtration systems, whether it's tablets or a pump or whatever kind of water filtration you can find. You can also create a fire to boil your water to reduce the chance of getting some sort of bacteria or virus that will kill you. Now, some things to avoid when packing your go bags and putting them in secure and safe locations so they're ready to go. The first thing you want to avoid is do not overpack. Do not overpack. Back to another Sun Tzu quote from The Art of War. Bring war material with you from home, but forage the enemy. Thus, the enemy will have enough food and supplies for your needs. 1 cartload of the enemy's supplies is equivalent to 20 of your own. And that's another quote from Sun Tzu, essentially explaining that you don't want to be over encumbered. Only bring what you need to survive the 90 days. Do not bring more. If you bring more, you're going to be too heavy. You're going to have too much stuff. You'll be too much of a target. You won't be nimble enough to move. So don't overpack. In the description below, I'm going to have a link to a backpack under $50 with all the survival supplies you need. The only thing that this particular backpack is missing that I would include is a water filtration system. There are some other things that I'll include in my own backpacks like traps, and I will have a link in the description below for the water filtration system because you 100% will need those, and there are some cheap lightweight ones. So to avoid being over encumbered again, always look for lightweight solutions to all your problems. So the water filtration system that I have is a bladder system. Bladders are going to be collapsible so they don't take up a lot of space and they're lightweight. Whereas if you have a hard water bottle, it's going to take up more space and it'll be heavier. All right, we're gonna go over a cheap Amazon go bag you can order online for under $40. Some of the things that it's missing, and we're gonna go over all the things that you should add to it as well. So for starters, this is a really light bag. This is a 4-pound bag, so it's only 4 pounds. I could carry multiples of these on me at once. You could have every family member carrying one, and it is very lightweight. And it's gonna contain a little bit of everything, but it's also missing a few items, so I'm gonna show you how you can buy those other items for cheap. So we're gonna keep this go bag under 50 bucks and have everything you need to survive the first 90 days of a collapse. Extra pocket, good zippers. Strap, sling. All right, so here's the whole kit right here. You got the backpack, super lightweight, very small. You've got an emergency shelter right there. You're great for shelter, good rain cover. You could wear it on top of your outfit, whatever you want to do. You got that. We got some glow lights. That's good for in case you're in an emergency and you need to get found, or you just need to find your way around, or you need to keep an eye on your kids. You got a flashlight right here. You got some fishing gear right here, so some hooks, some line, catch that food. Looks like you could use this to attach to your fishing line, or you could attach something to hang off your belt. You might even be able to make a snare out of this, so it's decent steel. So you got this right here. Paracord, use this for everything. Propping up tents, making your shelter, fixing clothes, making a snare for catching food. There's so much you can do with this, making weapons, etc. Another light, camping lamp right here. Extra emergency rescue blanket, similar material to the emergency shelter. You can use this if you're overheating or you're freezing or whatever you need to do. This is good for an emergency, but it's also good for shelter making and extra layers for clothing. you know, the silver reflects the light. If you're burning up, this can keep your temperature down, and also it's insulating too, so it can do the opposite as well. Yeah, so if you go into shop, this is great for keeping you warm, dry, and clean. Little first aid kit. So in here, looks like you got a little bit of different stuff. So you got some antibacterial stuff, you got some bandages, you got some gauze, you got some clothespins, etc. Very rudimentary first aid kit. I'm going to recommend that you get yourself some tourniquets. You know, it's good to have a few tourniquets because if you get shot or you land on something sharp and you have real trauma, not some little baby cuts and wounds, you're gonna need some serious way to stop the bleeding so you can patch it up. So this is good for basic stuff and for antibacterial. However, you're definitely gonna want some tourniquets, and there's some other things that you're gonna want as well. Got some cotton swabs, so also good for medical stuff if you need to touch something up with antibiotics, or triangular bandage, so you break a bone or something, you can ring up part of the body. Or, you know, this can also be used for if you got a lot of blood coming out of your body. This plus the other gauze and stuff you have, this can stop the bleeding. This is a combination of a ferro rod, but it's also got a slight measuring thing. It's got a can opener. Yeah, for this, you can start a fire with this. If you need to measure something for some reason, boom, you got it. And hey, if you got some cans, you got some beer, you know, drink your sorrows away. This is a multi-purpose survival tool. Looks like you can open a can. You've got a knife edge. So a little bit of a knife edge there and one here. You got a ruler, can opener, cap opener. You got a wrench, butterfly wrench, saw blade. In case you need a bunch of different random tools, you got this here. This is great, super lightweight and can perform some different things. You got a little hatchet. This is great for making kindling. Let's see what's underneath the bag right here. That's pretty cool. Lightweight, this must be carved out just to make it more lightweight. It also helps you slice through the wood. It looks like it's decently sharp, so nice handle. This could be a weapon. It could be a cutting tool for firewood or whatever. It's got this nice little part on the back too, so you can use that for breaking up small rounds of wood, or you can smack somebody with that as well. Weapon, firewood, cutting brush, you name it. You also never know when you need to hack something, whether, like, let's say your knife goes dull, you could cut string with this. I've cut steel fencing with this. Believe it or not, I've used a hatchet to cut steel fencing when my fence strippers were all rusted out. I would use this, boom, 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 and it's almost faster than that. So a lot of things you can do with a hatchet or an axe. And this is a small enough, lightweight one. Extra clip. And attach something to this. It's got this, so you can attach it to your belt loop or whatever. Little multi-tool. Yeah, so you got some needle nose pliers. You got some different knives and screwdrivers and whatnot. So good to have some multi-tools. We got a couple here. We got this one. We got this one too. All right, you got a little whistle, survival whistle. This is a pen. We need to write stuff or whatever you need to do. So it closes up, opens up. All right, got a little shovel for burying your waste or digging holes to catch water. It's got a little can opener, got a little saw right there in case you need to saw through some wood or something else. Good little lightweight shovel. Could also be a weapon. Extra carabiners. So you can attach things, whether it's a tarp over yourself or a hammock, or you need to attach something to your belt, or you need to hang up food to keep it away from bears, whatever. These are good for just attaching things. Lightweight, but heavy duty. Gloves. Poncho, in case it starts raining or pouring. It's a great thing to have. And then you got this little wristband. I actually have one of these. It's got a little compass on there. Sometimes those can get pretty inaccurate, but looks like right now it's decently accurate because north for us is that way. Decently accurate compass you can utilize. The paracord, extremely useful. Use that in so many survival situations. Fixing your tent, fixing your clothes, making a snare, tying something up to a tree, whatever you need to do. And this fits on your wrist, so you can even take this out of the bag and put more stuff in there. Overall, this is a great kit. There's a couple things. There's three main things I would add here. The first one is a snare. You need a snare. This is a reusable tool for catching food over and over and over and over and over again. These are heavy duty. The likelihood of this breaking is almost impossible, and I can catch countless hare, rabbits, other small game, shoot. People have caught deer, and then you could shoot the deer after you catch them. So extremely universal tool. Doesn't take up a lot of space. Water filtration. You can add some water tablets in here. This is a water filtration device that I pour the water in the bladder, and when I drink it, it goes through a filter. Katahdin, if I'm saying that brand properly. I'll include the link in the description below for this. This is really affordable. With this and your survival bag, a snare, and a tourniquet, you're at about $50 total. This is, I don't know, $5 or so. And then snare like this, I got mine really cheap. You're gonna have to look online for different types. You can get snares for under $5. This one brand new is probably somewhere like $16. There's a lot of different options. And you also don't need to go with these super high-end snares. I do trapping. I love trapping. Trapping is an awesome skill and it'll help your hunting too. But you can get snares for cheap. You can also use more paracords. You could just buy more paracord and use that instead of, getting a legitimate snare. The last thing I would add is a tourniquet. You need a good tourniquet. You should have multiples of these because let's say a bomb goes off or you get shot or you fall into a bunch of jagged rocks or something and you have 3 trauma wounds. You need to tourniquet up at the extremities, maybe multiple legs and an arm, or you should really have one for each arm, one for each leg for each member of your family minimum. So I got 5 members of my family. I want at least 20 tourniquets, ideally, because you don't know what's going to happen. You should pack some of these in there as well. And that, my friend, is what you need in your survival go bags. Keep 3 of these minimum, 1 at home, 1 in your vehicle, and then 1 in your place of work or schooling, and you'll be good to go. And you can keep it under $50. $150, you can get 3 of these go bags with a snare, a tourniquet, a water filtration system. That's a great place to start and keep your family prepared for the worst scenario. So there you have it, you guys. This $38 bag off Amazon has everything you need in it, plus or minus a few items. Adding the tourniquet, the snare, water filtration system, this came out to about $50. $150, you'll get 3 of these, have 1 in your car, 1 in your house, 1 at your place of work or schooling. Remember, you guys, you can buy the fanciest bag on the world. None of that matters if you do not train with the equipment in here. If you have a tourniquet, you need to practice putting a tourniquet on your leg, on your arm, etc. You need to have your kids and your wife practice putting the tourniquet on their legs and their arm, etc. Making sure it's tight enough. It should cut off the blood flow. It should be very uncomfortable. You need to practice those skills because when the problem arises, you can have whatever gear you want, but if you don't know how to use it, it's useless. Same thing with the snare. You need to practice snaring animals. If you've never caught an animal in a snare, well, you need to get out there and practice it. At the very least, practice setting it up. You may not have success, but if you practice setting it up, then you'll be 1 step ahead of the others trying to survive out those 90 days. One more thing to think about too when packing your survival bags and getting survival bags is you want your stuff in the same place every single time so you know where to get it. So if I have 3 survival bags, they should all be packed exactly the same. That is one of the flaws of these smaller cheapo bags is although they are small and portable, in order to get anything in this bag, I pretty much have to unpack the whole thing. So that is one of the flaws of these types of bags. Think about that when getting your bags. This is a great starting point, a great bag to start with because it's lightweight and cheap, and at least you'll be prepared with your family. Having a more robust bag that's a little bit bigger, more organized, more spaces to put stuff, it might be easier to access stuff without having to pour everything out of the bag. So keep that in mind when choosing your own survival bag. And once again, links in the description for the bag and the water filtration system. You can look up tourniquets and snares on your own terms. I'll include some links for snares and tourniquets as well in the description below. However, choose an affordable option for you if you're trying to keep your bag below $50. It might be cheaper to just buy some more paracord. And then for your tourniquet, there's a lot of different options out there online. You can also buy them from your local medical supply store, an Army surplus store. They even have some of these supplies at your common Walmart, Safeway, Target, etc. Now, before I get into the next example, which may completely change the way that you prepare for a collapse and surviving the first 90 days of a collapse, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below if you want to stay prepared for the next global collapse. Now, this tactic needs to be at the forefront of your survival plan and all chaotic situations. It's how you deal with stressors and will prevent you from making foolish decisions when chaos erupts. Just as water contains no constant shape, so is warfare. There are no constant conditions. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. This quote just explains how strategically you need to be prepared for the unimaginable. Tip number 3, the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. Those are the 4 steps of the OODA loop. OODA. Observe, orient, decide, act. Now let's break down each of these steps so that you can start practicing these at home. Step number 1 is observe. In step 1 of the OODA loop, you're gathering information, including facts, changes, dangers, and other data you need to assess when deciding how to act. For example, if gunshots take place at a Walmart parking lot in the middle of the day, I need to first collect where did those gunshots come from. That's a piece of data to observe before I act. Because if I act before I figure out where those gunshots are, I might run right into the line of fire. Step number 2 is orient. This is where you take the data that you collected, analyze, and interpret what it means. This is the most critical stage of the OODA loop, according to Boyd, who's the man who developed this system for handling chaos. In this situation, you dissect the information like, okay, gunshot was over there. We're in the Walmart parking lot. We're in America. We're in this town in America. I'm with my family. This is where you take that information and you assess it based on the current area and the current geopolitical situation. So for example, today we're not experiencing a collapse yet. So I'm going to distill that information and act on it differently than if we're already in that 90-day collapse. So think of the orient part of the situation where you distill that information together, take the most important pieces of that information, and determine what it means in today's day and age. Step number 3 is decide. This is where you choose your course of action based off how you collected the data and what you've determined the data to mean. This may require you to take certain strategies, eliminate ones, and choose the best ones to act. Now, this must be a timely decision because it's better to act sooner than to delay too long and to get caught in a bad situation. So take the data, analyze it, create a plan in a timely manner. Step number 4 is act. This is where you implement the decisions that you decided you're going to make. After you take the action plan that you determined is the best one for this current scenario, once you finish those action steps, you may need to reactivate the OODA loop again. This is a recurring system. So you observe, orient, decide, act, and then you do it again. Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. It's a cyclical system. Remember, it's a loop, not a linear process. So this cycle will continue to take place, especially in kinetic situations. And the faster you can go through this loop, the better you'll be able to handle chaotic situations. Speed is your best friend. This is also why you need to practice the OODA loop. Just repeat those 4 words in your head all day long today. Observe, orient, decide, act. Repeat those 4 words over and over and over again to drill it in your head so that when chaos erupts, you can repeat those in your head and you don't need to think about it. It's already in your long-term memory. The OODA loop is ideal because it utilizes speed and adaptability over brute strength. If you're in a situation with adversaries, it's the best way to checkmate your adversaries. In business, it's the best way to outmaneuver your competitors. And when chaos erupts, you'll be able to take action quick. So let me give you an example of how this might play out in a 90-day collapse situation. So in this example, you're driving to work. You're a husband, you've got a wife, and you've got kids. Your wife is at her job and your kids are at school. When you arrive at your workplace, you go and settle in at your desk. You notice your phone is down, your computer's not working, and everybody in your office is looking around like, what is going on? You look out your window, you start to notice people coming out on the streets. So the first step in this situation, you need to observe. So you've already done some of the observation. You've noticed that electronics are not working, people are looking confused, and there's people on the street. Some other data you take in is that you're already at work, your spouse is at work, and your kids are at school. That's a really important data piece. Where are the people in your tribe? So in this situation, you could go back to your car and orient all this information. So you collect all the data. Electronics are down. People are acting funny and confused. My family is at school or work. You put the keys in your car or vehicle and they're not working. At this point, you need to distill that information and decide, which is step 3 of this plan, what action plan am I going to take? So you decide that you need to first get to your kids. That's most important. They can't protect themselves, so you need to get to them first before you go and get your spouse. You also decide that you need to get your kids home and let your spouse find their way home so that you don't leave the kids alone at home. Finally, you also decide that you need to take the quickest and safest route to your kids' school where you drop them off, where you can avoid criminal activity, potential military activity, and you may not get caught in large crowds of people. So this is where you act. You start taking some back roads to go get your kids at school. You take the back roads to your kids at school. You notice that the whole school has their kids waiting out in the field, waiting for their parents to pick them up. You find your kids and then you walk them home down some back roads to avoid crowds of people. You get your kids home and then you wait patiently for your spouse to get there. At this point, the OODA loop will continue because you already observed, oriented, decided, and acted. Now you're home. You completed that first mission where you got your kids home and now you're waiting for your spouse. At this point, you're going to observe and orient more information. How long is it taking my spouse to get home? What are my neighbors doing? What kind of supplies do we have at home in case this is a bigger situation? Am I hearing any funny sounds? How are my kids doing? Etc. You're going to take all this information and then you're going to go on to steps 2, 3, and 4 of the OODA loop. So in this case, you might decide that I need to wait for my spouse to come home, or I need to go get my spouse and leave my kids home to get her back so that we can all regroup and figure out a plan. And then on top of that, you might also need to decide, well, once my spouse gets home, what are we going to do? Are we going to go into the forest and bug out? Are we going to hunker down at home? Are we going to try to find another tribe? Maybe we have a brother or sister who also has kids and they've got a safer spot with more firearms. So this OODA loop process is going to continue. Think of it like steps. OODA loop circle number 1 is, okay, I need to get my kids and myself home. That's OODA loop number 1. OODA loop number 2, I need to get my spouse back home somehow, and we need to start coming up with OODA loop number 3, which is, do we bug out in the forest? Do we hunker down? What is the long-term plan? How are we going to survive this next 90 days? And then once you get to that location where you're going to survive the 90 days, what's the next OODA loop? Are we hunting? Are we fishing? Are we eating food reserves, etc.? So you'll notice there's different stages in this OODA loop. It is a loop, not a linear process. Alright, you guys, I hope those 3 tips helped you out. I'm going to do a quick summary of those 3 tips again. Tip number 1 to survive the 90-day collapse is to have a written plan. Have a written plan. Make sure you go over it with your family members or whoever else is going to run with you when the world collapses, and have multiple printed copies in different locations. Tip number 2, have go bags in every location that you spend the most of your time. So in your vehicle, in your house, in your place of work, or your place of education. And make sure they have those most important things that are the common forms of death in a nation state collapse, such as Somalia, Yemen, or Syria. And those things are violence, famine, and disease. So you need to be able to protect yourself from violence, you need to be able to procure yourself food, and you need to be able to avoid getting sick. So carry a weapon, have some way to hunt, fish, etc., and carry medical and water filtration. And finally, practice the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Run that acronym through your head 100 times today so that you can get it memorized, so then when a situation occurs, you already have that memorized and you don't need to think about it. You won't get frazzled. And then also practice scenarios. Go over different SHTF scenarios and run through an OODA loop process with your spouse, your kids, or other family members so that you can practice problem solving in real time. Have a written plan. Have survival bags in a minimum of 3 important locations. Practice the OODA loop. Go get out there today. Practice those 3 tips. Comment down below if any of them helped you. I appreciate you guys. God bless.